Scranton Locomotive, Baldwin number 26. Back in 1929, the famous Baldwin Locomotive Company, one of the biggest builders of steam locomotives in the entire world. Our coaches here date back to the 1910s, 1920s. Commuter cars, they travel to work in Northern New Jersey. Our railroad yard here dates back to 1851, back to the beginning of the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad. Alongside our train, you will see the municipal parking lot, the police station. That was the location of the original roundhouse that was here in 1855. 30-bay roundhouse with a roof over the top and a 60-foot church. They were by hand up around the other side, walking around the circle up the garage. Heading back, we're going to pass by the big concrete silo. That was for storing sand. Sand was used on the rails for slippery conditions. You have a dome on top of the rail, sand. Real slip with pipe sand right down onto the track. Modern trains today still do it. Concrete circles at one time used to surround oil tanks for the diesel fuel. The tall steel tanks inside the circle in case of a leak, and concrete was put in one location. On the south side of our train, you will see our locomotive repair shop, a big brick building here we're passing by. Dates back to 1865. The locomotive repair shop is where all the major work was done on the steam locomotives, rebuilding, making parts, and so forth. The roundhouse we have today dates back to 1902. That's where the minor service was done on the engine oil. On our south side of the train, you can see our big locomotive 6039. We'll see it in just a moment. We've got our number one here, 1910. Folks, on the north side of our train, you will see the Mall Bridge, or Mall Walkway. That is open date till 5 o'clock. You're welcome to go up there to get a view of the train or take some photos. Also the food courts on the second level of the mall. That walkway is supported by the concrete footers that at one time supported the coaling trestle. We used to have a coal trestle about the same height, the same length of that walkway, where they would shove hopper cars full of coal to the far end, east end of the trestle, and they had chutes that would come down and bring a steam locomotive on either side to load up the tender with coal. Check out the model railroad in our technology museum up on the second floor. You'll see a model of this yard, exactly what it looked like in the 1940s. Electromotive Division, EMD. When you look at our diesel electric locomotive, think of a giant Toyota Prius on rails, because essentially that's what it is, but it's made in the States. It is a hybrid. Lackawanna was scrapping some of their steam locomotives. They actually recycled the frame from the tender, and that's the frame that's on that caboose. It's the frame from our locomotive tenders. It's a pretty heavy-duty caboose. Passing by our little freight train here on our south side, we've got a caboose at the end of this little freight train as well. The caboose was the office for the conductor. On a passenger train, he'd ride with us, but on a freight train, he's got to have his little office. Each car had paperwork or bills of lading that went with them, so he had to keep track of all the paper, he had to do his homework. Long before smartphones and calculators, he had to do that all by pencil and paper. The caboose today has been replaced by a device called a thread, a flash rear-end device or end-of-train device. Basically, technology put the caboose out of work. The all-steel caboose today, to be built from scratch, would cost roughly about $100,000. Plus, you'd have to have the crew inside too. The thread is just an electronic box that you put on the last train car on the train. You don't have to feed thread, you don't have to pay thread. They used to be scattered about the railroad yard for tools and supplies. The switching tower here dates back to the 1950s. Passing next to the parking lot for the bus station, you'll see the railroad track on the center of that parking lot. That was a connecting track known as the Strawberry Hill Branch, which connected the Lackawanna Railroad. On this side of the street would be Delaware and Hudson, which used to have a station on the opposite side of the street on the corner. Just passing the trolley platform and the trolley. Our neighbors trolley museum are up in a trolley today. It's a very nice ride. Takes about an hour.
Yeah, these guys right here didn't get these tickets. Who here didn't get tickets? Oh no. You guys didn't get tickets? You're stuck around in 10 seconds.
As we move along here, we're gradually climbing uphill. On the north side of us, of course, we have the marketplace of Steamtown, the mall. Most of the space occupied by the mall at one time was part of this railroad yard. There were a lot more tracks here at one time. You may see the building with the green trim and the cinder block. That was the maintenance away building. Those are the folks that used to work and maintain the tracks. Behind that building, we have a larger building, about 3 stories tall. That was the office and storage building for the railroad. The front section there, 3 stories, were offices for the company. And the bulk of that building was for storage of materials and supplies. The mountain was formed many years ago. All the pressures involved, all that pressure from that plant life that made everything whole. Anthracite burns very hot, very clean. In fact, this railroad had an advertising campaign that took advantage of that. Where the other railroads using soft coal might get you there faster, Lackawanna advertised a hard coal. Famous lady known as Phoebe Snow. This Phoebe Snow about to go upon the road to Buffalo. My gown stays bright from morning till night upon the road to anthracite. She didn't get the dust on her because that clean burning anthracite coal. So that advertising campaign came about in the early 1900s and lasted basically through the 1940s, 1950s. Lackawanna had bigger competitors, certainly like New York Central and Pennsylvania, even Erie for many years, for people traveling between New York City and Chicago. On the Lackawanna, you could take the train from Hoboken, across New Jersey, up through the Poconos, and from here go up to Binghamton and head west to Buffalo. And then Lackawanna had trackage rights over the Nickel Plate Railroad to access Chicago. The Lackawanna train between Hoboken and Chicago in the late 1800s was known as the Lackawanna Limited. Today you're riding on the Scranton Limited. So your tickets ready, our conductor's coming around to check your tickets. In the late 1940s, when the diesel electric train set came out, the Lackawanna renamed their train from the Lackawanna Limited to Phoebe Snow train. So every time you have the whistle on the train, there's a different meaning. We just have 4 whistles, but we've got a walkway up ahead. A walkway or roadway, sometimes crossing. Just passing next to the Radisson Hotel, the former Lackawanna passenger station. Opened up in 1908. building served as a passenger station from 1908 up till 1970. That was the last passenger train in Scranton. The upper floors were offices for the company. Later, hotel rooms. Building's been a hotel since about 1983. And passing alongside the University of Scranton, at one time known as St. Thomas Aquinas School. Excellent university. The school is on the north side of our train. On the south side, you'll see some extra railroad tracks. We are still in the railroad yard, so the yard extends from Steamtown all the way up here behind the university.
Hey, thank you.
Whistles there for the walkway that goes over to the parking lot here. Just down below the tracks.
Yeah.
We get one whistle when the train stops. We get two whistles when the train moves forward, three for backwards. What does it mean when you hear many whistles in a row? Just get out of the way. You can move off the track a lot quicker than the train can stop. If you'd like to join us for some of our longer trips, of course that's going to involve a cost, but you can check us out on recreation.gov. You see some of our destinations in the Poconos and also on the Cardinal line. We do have a trip tomorrow going out to Gouldsboro, Pennsylvania. That's probably about 25, maybe 26 miles east of us. Tomorrow's trip, I believe, is 11 o'clock. So check recreation.gov just to be sure, all the details. We're heading downhill back into the park. So anybody can get the steam locomotive going. It's asking a good engineer how he stops the train. So we'll find out in a few minutes. Hold on. Passenger engineer is usually nice and smooth. Get a freight engineer on here and he shakes the whole car up. As we're backing down past the university, if you look past the classroom building on the hill, you'll see the old mansion or Scranton Estate. That was home to Joseph and Scranton, cousin of George and Selden, who started the iron works and built the railroad. So when you run short on money, what do? You call a family member. They call Joseph Hand to help them out, support the furnaces. What the old mansion today is the offices for the graduate school for the University of Scranton. On the south side, just below us here, we have the soccer field for the University of Scranton. One time that soccer field used to be a small freight yard where they stored boxcars. And actually the train interchanged freight, local freight, with the trolley system. The trolley system used to run between Wilkes-Barre and Scranton, and the two communities in between it was known as the Laurel Line. In fact, it's because of the trolley system that Scranton was nicknamed the Electric City, because unlike bigger cities that had trolleys before, their trolley started out with a horse and mule pulling a trolley through town. Scranton was all electric from day one, so back in 1886. You'll see a little wooden station there beyond the trees, and you'll see just the tops of the iron furnaces. You're welcome to go visit the activities there today. Check out our schedule. There's 9 or 4 this afternoon. Got a little trolley bus moving to the station in the Steamtown parking lot. That'll be half an hour or so to go back and forth to the town. If you want to walk over, that's good as well. And this little parking lot is down below us. That was the location for the passenger station for the trolley line for the Royal Line. They were passing by a little switching tower known as Madison Street Tower. This tower controlled the switches for the trains going up here to the station. We are presently on the freight tracks. The wall above us here on the north side supports the passenger tracks. A little bit closer to the station. And on the south side here, this giant complex was the locomotive shop for the railroad from 1909 up through the late 1940s. To give you an idea of why they needed such a big complex, our shop back in the park is back in 1865. In 1865, the average steam locomotive weighed less than our steam engine on this train today. In 1865, the engines probably weighed roughly about 30 to 35 tons. Number 26 here weighs in the neighborhood of 60 tons. By the early 1900s, 1910s, 1920s, many of these big steam locomotives exceeded 100 tons, in some cases over 150 tons. It's a much bigger complex to rebuild them and maintain them. If anybody was wondering how many trains we have here at Steamtown, the correct answer, lots of trains. Our collection was started by one individual, Mr. Francis Nelson Blount, in the 1950s, late 1950s. Mr. Blount was a very smart man. As a young man, he got his education. His family owned a couple small seafood boats or fishing boats. He used to fish for oysters and clams. Nelson built that company into a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And trains were his hobby. He loved to go out and watch trains, and steam locomotives. It was the right place at the right time. When the railroads were starting to get rid of steam locomotives, Nelson saw the opportunity to save it. He and his volunteers put together a pretty big collection. They started in North Walpole, New Hampshire in the late 1950s. 1963, they moved a short distance to Fellow Falls, Vermont. Expand our train rides. Unfortunately, lost Nelson back in 1967. Nelson's money went back to his family. Volunteers were kind of left on their own to keep the trains going. The family wasn't quite as interested as the volunteers were. But the volunteers realized they needed to relocate to bring more people in. You know, take the train rides and pay their bills. They moved down here in 1984. That time they were on the Steamtown Foundation. They did better here as a more central location, close to a lot of the big cities and the interstate system. But they still struggled financially. In 1986, the collection was donated to the National Park Service, October of 1986. And of course, the National Park Service soon found out how fun and how expensive trains could really be. And that's our mission. We're going to restore everything, at least cosmetically. That's our goal. You know, our goal, our vision, and our pockets are two different things right now. But it'll take a few years. Not everything's going to run. We're going to restore a couple pieces to operation, but most of it's going to be for appearance, cosmetic, to stabilize it and look good. We have 26 steam locomotives on the property. Of that, we have one that operates. Ironically, that's also another 26. We're hoping in a couple of years to get a big steam locomotive running, good size engine. That's in our repair shop. If anybody takes the walk through the shop today, that's open for tour. That's the Boston and Maine Steam Locomotive 3713. We have over 40 cars in our collection between freight cars and passenger cars. Delaware and Hudson. And we also have the New York, Ontario, and Western. Now most of these railroads have their own stations, their own facilities, their own tracks. Crossing the park entrance, you might see the old building. It was the old freight station for the Central Railroad in New Jersey, right there off of Lackawanna Avenue. It's got dark brick, it's got the turret on the side. That is privately owned today. Not sure what the plans are for the future of that building, but it's a beautiful building. Hopefully they'll be able to use it for some purpose here in Scranton. I don't know if anybody's from Scranton or this area or not, but if you are familiar with Cooper's Seafood House, just north of downtown, on Washington Avenue, that was the old Erie Station. You wouldn't know it looking at the building today. It looks like a big seafood boat. It's got an octopus or something on the outside with a pirate. That was the old Erie train station. If you go inside there, I hear the food is good. Not recommending any particular establishment, but it's got a nice reputation. There are many pictures, old photos of the trains and trolleys that ran in Scranton. As our train moves through the yard, you may or may not be listening, but you can hear the bell ringing. Anybody know why we have a bell on our train? Because it looks pretty? Sounds nice? That's right, that's correct. To warn people the train is coming. It's the same purpose as having that whistle or horn on the diesel. Now think of this, we have many trains used to come in and out. In Scranton, in the yard alone, we have dozens of trains. If you were close enough to hear that bell, that train was very close to you, and that means you had to watch out for it. The whistle or horn can be coming from a great distance. That bell has to be pretty close. We do have a lot of activity, of course, today being Railfest. We invite you to explore, but if you're out in the railroad yard, please be very careful. If you haven't done so yet, you're certainly welcome to join our crew and ride in the Caboose. It's a shorter ride, but it's pretty neat. Not so many people get the opportunity to ride in the Caboose. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, that one whistle means the brakes are on. Thank you folks for joining us today for our ride. Enjoy the rest of your visit.